Hello and welcome to Beauty in the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. And today I have a very special guest that I have known for a very long time, and it's Dr. Michael Persky. Now, he's a cosmetic facial plastic surgeon in private practice in Encino, California, which is Southern California, and has been since 1985. Now, he specializes in rhinoplasty, blepharoplasty, facelifts, laser skin resurfacing, as well as a variety of non-surgical solutions. Now, Dr. Persky is a frequently invited speaker, both nationally and internationally, at facial plastic surgery and multi-specialty cosmetic surgery conferences, and he's a medical consultant on numerous national and local TV news segments, as well as a featured medical expert in LA Daily News, LA Times, and LA Magazine. Dr. Persky, welcome to Beauty in the Biz. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Catherine. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's always an honor to be connected with anything that you're involved in. So thank you for inviting me. I'm honored and privileged to be here, and I hope we'll have a great session.
Oh, I know we will. So just to let the audience know, I have known you. You were almost one of the very first surgeons I ever met at a conference, and it was the Newport Beach facial medical conferences. Those were just the greatest conferences. I just love them, and that was a very long time ago. So just give us a quick synopsis of how you ended up in private practice. Were you still working in a hospital? Did you join a practice? What was your journey like?
Well, my journey began at UCLA Pre-Med in medicine, and my baseball career did not pan out as I wanted to. So I went to medical school at Emory University, did my residency training at LA County USC in head and neck surgery, facial plastics. In the last couple years of my training, I was offered a position with two practicing facial plastic ENTs in Encino, California. And in 1985, I went into practice with them and did primarily ear, nose, and throat with some facial plastics, as most young doctors in head and neck surgery training do. After about 5 years, I went into practice by myself. Going in with them, about 2 years in, I had to buy in a small fee. Mm-hmm. And then when I went out into my own practice, I just established that by myself.
But let's just back up. When you were with them, were you brought on as an associate and then you stayed for a couple of years and then you were offered a partnership, or what was the agreement?
The agreement was I was paid a salary per month, and anything above that I brought in, they kept, which is I found was the usual agreement.
They kept the whole thing?
Well, I was paid my salary at the
right.
time, $5,000 or $10,000 a month, which was ridiculous in 1985, or 20,000, but I don't remember. But soon after the first year, I bought in, I think, for $50,000, and then I was an independent practitioner where I kept what I brought in, and I shared 1/3 of the expenses of the practice, which was pretty steep because I had two established doctors and I was young and starting out. And most doctors and surgeons who start out don't have that big of a practice and that big of an income flow to get things going. So I did take out a loan to establish myself.
So was it helpful to be in a practice with two other surgeons? Were you at least able to live off of their name or their reputation, or patients that they attracted but didn't want and gave them to you? Like, what were the pros and cons of that?
The pros were, again, both of them were phasing out of their ENT portion of their practice. So I saw a lot of patients there. And from the ENT patients, I was able to gain some facial plastic patients, whether it was a patient who couldn't breathe and wanted a rhinoplasty, or someone who had a mom who wanted a facelift. And young physicians can offer their services at a lower price than established physicians, and some patients who are looking for a deal will go for that.
And then, so you were mainly like 100% like ENT, no cosmetic, or what was the ratio at the beginning, and what is it now, I guess?
Probably 90% ENT and 10% facial plastics, and that continued to grow over the first 5 years. When I went into solo practice after 5 years, it was probably 75% ENT, 25% facial plastics. And then after 10 years, it was 100% facial plastics and no more ENT.
Gotcha. So to back up again, how did you untangle from the other two surgeons and go out on your own? What was that like?
So at 5 years, I had established myself. I had a flow of patients. I had an income flow, and just felt that one of the physicians was older. He was having trouble meeting the overhead every month. We were loaning him money, and the other physician wanted to go out on his own, and I wanted to go out on my own. So we just split up at that point, and I established my own practice.
And then did you open a practice nearby so you could assume that your patients would stay with you?
Actually, we had a very, very large office space, probably 5,500 square feet. And I just lopped off about 2,000 of those square feet and kept the area and just
Oh, okay. That's a great idea. And then how did you divvy up staff? Did you want to bring your staff with? Did you want to start over? How did that work out?
That was one of the things. The first year I was in with the other doctors, I shared staff, but there was always a problem with, hello, doctor's office.
Yeah.
May I help you? And which doctor do you want to see? And they have their allegiances to the established doctors. So within a year, I had my own staff. I had my own director. I had my own receptionist. I had my own medical assistants. So pretty much it was a transition from shared to our own. Even though we were in the same space, we had our own practices.
Okay. And do you wish you had done it sooner, or were you happy to get that experience and get all that credibility under your belt first?
Well, for me, I was naive. I was the first to go to college in my family. I was the first, obviously, to go to postgraduate school. I didn't take a formal fellowship. My fellowship was being in practice with these two established surgeons who were probably doing the most rhinoplasty in Los Angeles at the time. And so I spent my first year pretty much watching them, observing them, and learning. So that was a good experience. I think most of the physicians today are coming out of fellowships. They can learn from their mentors how to run a practice, which is very, very important. I had no idea. So yeah, I would do it differently today. I would definitely recommend doing a fellowship and not only learning the surgical and medical skills, but learn how to run a practice during that year.
For sure. So any staff pearls? The staff can be a challenge, hiring them, firing them, motivating them. Any pearls that you learned that work really well for you to put together a staff that stayed put?
Things have changed a great deal over the last 3 years post-COVID with staff. I just read an article the other day about staffing and not only in medicine, but everywhere. Mm-hmm. And the criteria today to hire somebody is that they have a pulse. It's the Great Resignation. People don't want to come to work. So it's very hard today to find good staff. I think that one must interview them personally. Well, I interview all my staff with my wife because I think she has a good insight into things. I used to, for many years, just trust my medical director, the office manager, to hire staff. And then I had the final say at the final interview. But I think today it's important for us to look at people from the start all the way through and see them in the interview process a few times before deciding on them. I have a small practice that's more like a family feel. So we have to get a good feel for the person's ability to communicate with our patients and just be a good person, and then also qualified in what they're being hired for.
Okay, so now we're going to back up because a long time ago we were at a conference and I ran into a very pretty young woman who she had just gotten out of, I don't know if it was fellowship or what, but we were talking at a conference and she said, I'm really looking for a practice to join. I don't know what to do. I don't know where I want to be. And sure enough, I said, well, and then you walked up and I introduced the two of you and take it from there.
So it was in San Diego, and it was probably 13, 14 years ago. And I was Dr. Sharmila Sundar, who is an incredible physician, surgeon, and person as well. And you had introduced us in the exhibit hall, and we began to talk, and she told me the things that she wanted to do. And I'm a native of Southern California, and she was coming in from the East Coast, and she wanted to split her practice between Beverly Hills and an outlying Los Angeles area. And so I advised her to just stay in Beverly Hills. She doesn't want to do that 2-hour commute to the outside area. And but after a day or two of attending the conference together, we spoke, and we actually talked about, we met at the New Beauty exhibit magazine, and they were asking thousands of dollars to advertise. And it clicked that, well, here's a young doctor coming in. She trained with a physician, Vito Quatella, back east, who I always admired his aesthetic sense and his results, and particularly facelifts. And she was an expert under him in facelifts. And I particularly didn't want to do facelifts. I always thought facelifts was the greatest one-sided operation, if you could just do one side. But it wasn't my favorite thing to do. And I said, why don't you come into the practice and you can do my facelifts, and I'll stop doing those, and you could build your practice in the meantime. And she was a new mom and raising a family, so it worked out good for the both of us that she came in and was able to establish a practice. 7 years later, she went out on her own, and today she has one of the premier practices in Beverly Hills.
That's amazing. And then you had another associate at one time, didn't you?
Yes. So then I was by myself again, which I'm comfortable with, and for about 3 years. And then I was contacted out of the blue by Dr. Ari Hyman, who was at the time a fellow with Dean Toriumi. Mm-hmm. And again, I always admired Dr. Toriumi's nasal work. He's the premier nasal surgeon in the world. And he had good things to say about Dr. Hyman. Dr. Hyman said he was moving to California with his wife and was interested in establishing a practice. And again, I said, okay, come on in. And I saw his work. And once I saw it, I said, you know what? You could do all the rhinoplasties and the facelifts. And, I'll just do eyelids and other things. And eventually, after a few months, I just decided to stop doing surgery, and he did all the surgeries. He was with us for about 2.5 years and very successful. And now it built out his own practice and surgery center. So I'm back by myself again. And actually, I've been interviewing new young doctors coming out of fellowship programs, perhaps want to join me. The thing is, I have a large patient population over the years that I've been established since 1985. And so patients are always coming in or asking me for surgery. And so currently there's an opening there for a young doctor to come in. And, I'm probably at the stage of my career, 4 or 5 years, I'm going to be selling my practice. And so at this point, the new doctor who comes in has an opportunity of pretty much coming in and getting a Southern California facial plastic surgical practice.
So in the past, you were not looking at an exit strategy when you hired these associates, and now you are. Like, how are you going to vet them? Because that's a really big deal to try to hand your practice off to another surgeon, but you have to stay put. Like, how do you think that's going to work out?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. So I actually put out some feelers with some of the fellowship directors this past year, and we had about 12 interviewees come in, and I narrowed it down to two.
Now,
And
what were you looking for in them?
so, one, again, I think they have to be an excellent physician and surgeon and a better person. So we have to be like-minded. I've established my practice on being a good physician and having relationships with my patients and long-term relationships. And so I need a person who is warm, yet very like top shelf quality surgeon with great results. Because I everything I have built over all these years is, and the only thing I really have is my reputation. But when patients call me, they know they're getting the best. And so I'm only going to settle for the best. So I had two of the best based on their fellowship directors' recommendations. They said this is probably the best fellow I've ever had, which is, again, what I heard in the past from the other young physicians who came in. And so one for her husband is moving somewhere else, and it would have been way too long of a commute for her to come in. So that fell through. And the other young physician currently is actually, we just spoke this week, he's deciding whether or not to take out a large loan to establish his own practice and build it from scratch, or come in with me. And to come in with me initially, the young physician still needs to take out a loan because our deal is different from all the other deals out there.
How so?
So banks will give young physicians bigger loans if they show I have to buy this, I have to buy that, and I have to buy that, rather than I need to support myself during that first year until I build my practice big enough to be successful with Dr. Persky.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you can build a practice in today's world? Do you think you can build it in a year where it's self-sustaining? And
well, again, it depends on the young physician. Both doctors Sunder and Hyman were very active on social media, Instagram particularly. I think they're before and after. And again, it's got to be great results, great surgeon, and very active on social media and willing to work hard. Now, it took Dr. Sunder longer because he was pretty much in the office 2 or 2.5, 3 days a week while she was raising a family. And Dr. Hyman was quick within, and this, so Dr. Hyman came in August of 2019, and we all know what happened later in 2019 and early 2020. So when we closed for 10 weeks in March of 2020 during his first year. So just as he started to see patients and bring in some income, we were shut down completely. And he was still able to establish his practice well enough within 2 years that he was able to go out and establish his own practice.
so regarding marketing of a surgical practice when there are two surgeons there, do you market separately? Do you do your own social media platforms? Is there any crossover? Because it seems to me you would have a different patient demographic probably than he does, just starting out. How did that work out?
So, and again, I'm different than most surgeons, again, because I'm not doing surgery anymore. So his success or her success is my success. Their success enables them to diminish my overhead in the practice. And my success brings patients to them. So with both physicians, we took out advertisements in local magazines together. and I promoted them, and I spoke with my patients, and I introduced them to all my patients. And so it was a combined effort on my part,
Mhm.
because they actually have a double benefit. They're getting my promotion, and then they will promote themselves on their own to carry on.
Huh. So do you, when you bring someone on board, then it's pretty much two people kind of running their own practices but sharing staff and overhead? Is that the point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
Okay.
we're sharing the physical space, the equipment, and staff. I found that when the young physician gets busy enough, then we have to bring in more staff, and that staff, it's more than just a medical assistant. At that point, they need to bring in their own type of coordinator, director, who really fine-tunes their surgical patients.
Gotcha. And then the new person coming on board, though, this is going to be treated differently because this is your exit strategy, more or less, right? You want this person to stay put, buy in, and literally take it over, and you walk away.
Yeah. So I basically, in the past, we had an agreement that was oral year to year.
Oh.
Going forward, I've now spent a great deal of time and treasure, as they say, having a very fair contract. So for me, it's all about, and this is what I told the attorneys that I dealt with, I wanted something to be very fair, and I wanted it to protect both myself and the new physician coming in legally. So we've established that. And so, this is going to be a little bit different, but basically the same setup. So it's fun. I know from my experience that a young physician could come into my practice and be very well established in a competitive Southern California facial plastic surgical environment within 2 years.
Nice.
And then have a career going forward for as long as they want to practice.
Okay, well, anybody hearing that, there's an opportunity out there in Southern California. It's absolutely beautiful where he's at. So think about that. Regarding marketing, I don't think, let's just talk about social media. I didn't really, so you're not doing any surgery at all right now? Or are you going to start doing it again now that you're on your own?
No, so people say, well, Dr. John Joseph is a good friend of mine, and we're actually in the same building. And both of us have, around the same time, we stopped doing surgeries. And we share the same experiences. And thank God, he actually gave a great talk at Miami Cosmetic Surgery. Dr. Diane asked him to speak about his background. And, I think our paths are very similar. Thank God, we've had good careers with excellent results on our surgical patients. No real complications. Thank God all the patients that went to sleep woke up and they're fine. And it's not that there's any wiggle in our dexterity, because we're both still doing very fine work on cases, and no drug problems or things like that. But at a certain point in our lives, for me, the epiphany came one morning when I had an anesthesiologist show up in the surgery center, and I had to cancel the case after he had put the patient to sleep because the alarms were going off. And he said, I said, is everything okay? And he said, well, her blood pressure's 80/40. And I looked, and the circulating nurse said, doctor, to the anesthesiologist, the blood pressure cuff is on the anesthesia table. So this guy just came in drugged out, and had to cancel the case. The mother was in the waiting room. She had flown down from San Francisco. An ER nurse had explained to her. So there's just, at this point of my career, I've had a lot of good things happen. I don't want anything bad to happen. I just couldn't live with a severe complication or even patient death, which, again, I've heard of a few in Beverly Hills just in the past week. So from good surgeons that I know.
Yeah, you want to go out on a good note for sure. So, because you're down in LA, how important was PR for you to grow your name or differentiate yourself from the others when so many others are after the PR as well? And do you have any tips and tricks about PR? Are you paying for it? Do you just happen to know somebody? How does that game work?
I remember when I first started out, there were some practice consultants who said, it doesn't matter about the skills of a doctor. If you have a good staff and a good PR, we can make you successful. And certainly that's true. It will cost you money to do it, like anything else. And I think for me, it never sat well with me. And I always felt that we built our PR word of mouth, one patient at a time, and one patient tells two patients, and again, avoiding that bad patient, because one bad patient will tell 10 or 20 patients. So it's all about for me, it was slowly building things along the way. I never found magazine advertisement to be good. I'm sold that Yellow Pages were our go-to in 1985. We've stopped those pretty shortly after that. I started on Real Self when it was new, and probably I was one of the first 5 physicians there. I think that's helpful and then Instagram today, I think, is the best place for young physicians to build their practice PR-wise. Mm-hmm. And it should all be about education. Educating our patients is most important. I see physicians doing a dance and dressing up, and I think that I think it diminishes our professionality. Although, who knows? Maybe the young Instagram crowd is into that, so I've been turned off by that. One of the things that I did early on, the only time I paid for PR was I was one of the first physicians to bring in the technology of a fractionated CO2 laser. And at the time, the technology was so expensive that I spent 25% of what that cost me on PR with a Beverly Hills PR firm. And they got me on some of the local and national news. And I spoke about the technology. And that led to a few other relationships. But it was very expensive. And so, everybody has to make their own decision. I think that if you have deep pockets, paying for PR is good. I think that you definitely have been a great influence on so many physicians, and everything that you have to offer, your books and your services. I've learned so much from you over the years. And, anybody who's watching this is definitely the person to talk to about building your practice. I mean, you're just such a great consultant. And so, yeah, that's.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm also looking at an exit strategy. Like we're all getting a lot older here and just trying to figure out, where is this all going? Oh,
you look better. You look better.
Oh, thank you. So to wrap it up, a lot of people are trying to understand the surgeons now can't just be surgeons. Like, even though you just went through like 14 years of hell to become a surgeon, now you have to start with business school, with marketing school, and you're trying to figure all that out now. So is there any quick way for people to understand the business and marketing side of plastic surgery? Do you listen to certain podcasts? Do you read certain books? And if you do, are they on leadership, business, marketing, social media? Any tips there?
Well, again, I that nice book sitting right behind. And again, this was not, Catherine, I have to say that I was contacted about this. I didn't know what the setup was going to be. There was no mention. I hadn't even spoken to you. I spoke to one of your assistants. I didn't even speak to her. It was an email. I had no idea what we were doing. There was no mention of plugging you or doing it.
No, you don't have to.
And I'm not plugging you, because anything, again, my reputation's everything to me. So it can't be bought. So The book behind you, I think, is a great place to start. I think that anytime I'm at a meeting, I think the meetings are important to attend, one or two at least a year. I stay on the more clinical side, but there's always the administrative side. And whenever I see your name there and that you're lecturing, I think it's important to come in and listen to hear what you have to say. And for young physicians, it's hard to take in both the clinical and the administrative portions of these meetings. I think that it's good to have either a spouse or an assistant attend so that they attend 100% of the administrative portions and hear everything you have to say. And then, again, become very facile in Instagram. Instagram is very important in building your practices. I think Real Self is good too, but, again, there's costs to that. There's cost to everything. There's cost to Instagram. So you have to have a budget that you're willing to spend starting off. But I think the blueprint should be around a great consultant such as yourself.
Thank you. And so my last question, what's one thing that we don't know about you that's pretty darn interesting? I happen to know you love dogs and you love the beach, but what else?
That my wife is such a good editor and she tells me I need to be a better editor. So I probably shouldn't share the few things that you don't know about me that I would normally share. So she's going to be very proud of me that I've done that.
Okay.
I just think that, we're all in the same boat. Life's short. I think that we have to help people and be honest and truthful. And again, it'd be nice if we can just have some conversations and listen to each other and get along and not be so wacky.
And on that note, I hear you, by the way. It has just been a pleasure to know you, Dr. Michael Persky. I think you're one of the nicest surgeons I've ever met. Your before and after photos are excellent. Then I'm going to miss you at the conferences if you stop going, because hopefully we're back out again. I finally, I sat on the sidelines for 2 years like everyone else. So now the meetings are starting again. So I hope to see you shortly.
We will.
All right.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. And if anybody has any questions, they're always welcome to call me. I'm always open to talk with people.
That's a really good point. If they want to get a hold of you, especially if someone's looking for a really great opportunity to join your practice, how would they do that?
They could contact me by email, drpersky@drpersky.com.
That's easy enough. And isn't your website perskymd.com?
Yeah. It's drpersky@drpersky.com.
Dr. Persky. Okay, gotcha. Thank you so much. And everyone, that wraps it up for us on Beauty in the Biz this week. Please do me a favor and subscribe to Beauty in the Biz so you don't miss any episodes. And if you've got any questions for me or any feedback for both of us, you can certainly leave them on my website at CatherineMaley.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at CatherineMaleyMBA. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon.